All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Column. Rich Walsh, I'm solo tonight. Paul Zeise is stuck out in Greensburg, I think. The weather conditions are bad. They're getting worse. That's the report from Paul. So don't leave your house. Don't go out unless you absolutely have to. I'm hoping I can get home from KDKA to my house tonight. If not, I might be spending the night here. Maybe we can do an extended version of the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. All night we could be taking calls on the Bordas & Bordas hotline. Right now, let's go out to the Bordas & Bordas hotline, and we're going to go out to Joe out in Greensburg, where the roads are bad, according to Paul Zeise.
Yeah, they are.
What?
Not too much. Hey, I'm calling about Antonio Brown. I don't know if with a partially torn calf muscle, he can even walk, let alone run. I had a ruptured Achilles a while back, and I tell you what, it was painful.
Yeah, well, I'm not a doctor, but I think there's a difference between an Achilles, because that has a lot to do with your balance, than a calf. But, I mean, this is a guy, I don't know how bad it was, if it was partially torn. I mean, you saw the videos that he was posting and what he was doing. And, I mean, he was out running. He's practicing. 3 practices this week. He didn't practice today, but that's because of an illness, not because of his calf. So he's good to go. He's only questionable, if, according to the Steelers officially. That's because of this illness that he has. I don't know what it is, a flu, stomach bug, something like that is what we're guessing. Tomlin said he sent him home so he doesn't get other people sick, and he expects him back in the building tomorrow. I think we'll see an Antonio Brown that's at least a 90% Antonio Brown from watching him practice this week. Joe, you still there? Thanks for your call, man. I appreciate it. Let's go out to Mike out in Beaver. How you doing, Beaver? Mike in Beaver.
Hey, Rich. How you doing?
What's up?
Hey, man. Be safe driving home tonight.
Yeah, I know. It's only getting worse.
Oh, it's bad. Hey, I'm worried about we're going to end up stacking a box to take Fournette away and trying to have Bortles beat us. And watching last week's game, I noticed that they didn't have somebody dedicated to mirroring Bortles. He ended up rushing for more than he did passing. And I think that could be a problem.
You know, I mean, I'm glad you brought this up, Mike. That's one of the questions I was asking guys in the locker room today, Vince Williams, if they're going to have a spy on Bortles. I mean, he's not your prototypical running quarterback, but he can move. I mean, he's pretty agile. Maybe reminds you of a little bit of a Ben Roethlisberger back in the day when without the throwing and the accuracy, but the movement like that. He's a big guy, and yeah, that's one of the reasons the Jacksonville Jaguars beat Buffalo last weekend. And they said they might not necessarily spy him, but I bet they have someone on him. They're going to be watching him, but I don't know if they're too worried. And that's basically what they told me. They're not too worried about Blake Bortles running the ball. They're worried about Leonard Fournette running the ball. And that's one of the things Vince Williams told me, that, you know, they're not worried about Blake Bortles running the ball. They're worried about their running back running the ball. So I think their first priority is to stop Fournette. You saw what he did to them the last time around. But this is a guy, and this is a guy, and this is coming from reporters and people in Jacksonville that are covering this team, that he's been slowing down. And even if you watched him the last couple of weeks, he's not the same Leonard Fournette that we saw in Week 5 against the Steelers. This guy, maybe he hit that rookie wall, and that's what a lot of people are speculating.
I'm hoping. He didn't get as many carries in the last couple of weeks.
And he missed a game, remember, a few weeks ago towards the end of the season?
Yeah.
But he's a guy that can beat you. I mean, he did have that long run. You take that away, he's under 100 yards, but he's definitely a guy that can beat you. But he's the only guy, I think, that can beat them. I don't see – you saw Bortles. He's not accurate at all. He's not going to be passing around the field. And the Steelers aren't worried about their passing game. They're worried about the running game. And Paul Zeise just actually walked in. He made it in from Greensburg.
Yay, Paul.
I'm pretty excited about that. He's going to sit down here in a second. But thanks a lot, Mike. That's a good point that you brought up, having a spy on Bortles. Like I said, from talking to some of those guys today in the locker room, I don't think that they're going to have a guy designated to spy Bortles, just because he's not that running kind of quarterback. He can run, he can move, but he's not like a Michael Vick back in his heyday. He's like a Ben Roethlisberger was at the beginning of his career. Do you think, Paul, I'm going to bring you in now. I'm glad you're back. How bad are the roads?
Well, hang on a second. Oh, they're awful.
They're awful.
They're awful.
Are we going to make it home?
I don't know how anybody's going to make it home after, I can't believe I made it from Greensburg.
It's just dedication, you coming in.
It's like, you know, the movie I love Josie Wells. I never leave a man behind. I never leave my partner behind.
I appreciate it.
No, I mean, I can't believe I made it here, to be honest. They're awful. They're the worst I think I've seen in a long, long time. They're icy, and now you're starting to get the slush.
Yeah.
The fall out of the sky, which is, I don't know what they call that, freezing rain. And then on top of that, now there's even some snow mixed in. So, but the ice changed so much, you know, there's actually places where there's standing water that is now ice.
Yeah. Sounds like Jeff Frizella might need you in the studio here.
Yeah, it's bad.
For a report.
It's bad, but you know what? I figure, but I have to come past here to get home.
Yeah.
So I said, if I make it by like 10:40, 10:45, I'm going to stop and help you out.
All right, well, thanks. I appreciate it. Mike was just talking to me in Beaver and asked about Blake Bortles, and he's worried about Blake Bortles beating him on the ground. It doesn't sound like anyone on the Steelers' defense is worried about Blake Bortles passing or running.
Nor should they be.
Yeah, I don't think so.
To me, if Blake Bortles is the guy that has the ball, they're probably going to win the game. You know, I mean, okay, he scrambles and gets a couple of first downs here and there. What you don't want is what happened last time where they ran for 231 yards between Fournette and who was the other guy that ran? They had, you know, two guys that averaged 6.3 yards per carry. That's what you don't want.
Yeah, you got to stop. Their focal point will be stopping Leonard Fournette for sure. Let's go out to Kevin out in Braddock. How you doing, Kevin? Kevin, you there? Kevin. Kevin out in Braddock. How about Kevin out in Altoona? Kevin. Kevin, you there? Okay, we got two Kevins here. Neither one can hear me. All right, let's go out to let's. All right, 3 is a charm. Let's go out to Terry in Gibsonia. How you doing, Terry?
Good. You mentioned Smith-Schuster or maybe Bell being the X factor. I actually think it's going to be Big Ben. I think he was bitter after the last game against Jacksonville and was asked those questions about his ability. And I think he's going to come out with a chip on his shoulder and kick some ass and really take him to task. And I think he's going to be the MVP of the game.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I was thinking about a guy that he was going to target. I agree with you on Ben being the guy and maybe the MVP, but who's the guy he's going to look to? And, you know, I don't know if you heard the soundbite that we ran yesterday, Paul, and you guys out there from Talvin Smith basically laughing at Ben and how he said he was going to retire after the last time he played them. So, you know, this is a confident group of Jaguars players coming here. They think they can win. I don't think they can win, but, you know, they have confidence. They killed the Steelers the last time they were here.
Well, and they're young. They don't know any better. So,
yeah.
Of course, they're, you know. Hey, look, a guy like Jalen Ramsey, he's so good at what he does, he's got to be cocky a little bit, right? I mean, these guys are good. They're young. They're brash. But that doesn't mean that they're going to come here and win. It does mean that they're going to come here. They're not going to be intimidated. You know, someone asked, I think it was, I forget, Ben Roethlisberger about, you know, the Jacksonville coming into this atmosphere and all this other stuff. I don't think they're going to be scared or intimidated. I just don't think they're as good as the Steelers.
You know, I know a lot of these guys kind of, you know, the weather doesn't affect them and everyone has to play in the conditions, but this definitely favors the Steelers, this team coming up here. It's going to be 15 to 20 degrees. It's going to be hard to pass the ball. It's going to be hard to catch the ball. I think weather's going to be a factor that does favor the Steelers.
Here's why I don't, because if you look at maybe you can, Jeff Frizella's got something different. But it looks like it's just going to be cold. And if it's just cold, it's not windy, snowy, sleet, all that other stuff.
This is a team from Florida, though.
Yeah, but if it's just cold, they've got heaters on the sidelines. They've got gloves. I mean, that's not going to be a big deal. I don't think that. If it's like it is tonight, like right now, if they were going to play, I would say absolutely, because they would not want to play in that. But, you know, you start playing, you listen to guys, you talk to guys. Once they start playing, you know, their body warms up, and the cold is not that big of a deal.
All right, we got to take a break. Back with more phone calls, more Paul Zeise, and more of your tweets coming up next. Stay right there.